Welcome back to the deep dive. Today, we're stepping a little bit away from the usual topics of market reports and quarterly earnings.
Far away, I'd say.
Far away, right? We're looking at a single, really powerful idea that seems to govern success in, well, almost every part of life.
Compounding.
Exactly.
Yeah.
We are diving deep into the work of engineer Reuben Juma Onunga, who frames this concept as the quiet mathematics of God.
That's right. And for most people, you hear compounding and you immediately think of, a savings account, interest on a 401k.
Yeah, finance.
But the argument here is that it's not just a financial function. It's a fundamental law of existence. It governs your character, your health, your relationships.
So our mission today is to kind of uncover that quiet mathematics.
I mean, in an age that is just obsessed with speed, with life hacks, with instant results, this whole idea is a necessary correction. It brings back a certain dignity to process, to discipline, and importantly, to time.
Okay, so let's unpack that mathematics because that's where the real power is. What does compounding actually mean in this much broader context?
It's the principle that small daily inputs, when you repeat them faithfully, they don't just add up, they multiply.
They multiply.
The result of today's effort becomes the foundation for tomorrow's. Think about the math for a second.
Yeah.
If you get just 1% better every day, you don't end up 365% better in a year.
Right, it's way more.
It's over 37 times better,
Yeah.
3,700%. And the key insight from Onunga's work is that life is always compounding something.
Whether you want it to or not.
Exactly, whether you're intentional or not. Small daily neglects, they accumulate in the same exponential way.
So if this is so powerful, why do so many of us quit? Why is quitting early such a common mistake?
It comes down to human impatience. I mean, we are just not wired to understand exponential growth in its early stages.
It looks flat.
It looks like nothing is happening. The tragic mistake is people quit because they demand immediate linear progress. They look at the first few months of learning a skill or saving money, and the returns look pathetic.
And they see someone else who is already at the end of that curve.
Yes, they envy the forest, but they were never patient enough to plant the seeds and wait for that growth to finally spike.
It makes perfect sense. We measure by what we can see today, not by the trajectory we're on.
Exactly. And that brings us right to the foundation of all of this. It's what the source called the law of the seed.
Let's jump into that. Part 1, the foundation. It all starts with something tiny, almost invisible, the law of the seed.
Well, what's fascinating is the humility that's required here. Every single lasting thing, a business, a relationship, a skill, it starts in a form that's so small it's actually easy to ignore.
Or even despise.
Or even despise. Great lives, they whisper into existence. They show up as these little habits nobody applauds, disciplines no one even notices.
Which is so counterintuitive to our culture of the big dramatic launch, the grand announcement. We celebrate the performance, not the practice.
And the source material calls this contempt for the seed. That's the failure. It's seeking the harvest without being willing to do the reps. It's demanding applause for something that's still forming in private.
And there's this ancient wisdom that speaks to this, right? The idea of not despising small beginnings.
Absolutely. The failure of the seed, initially, is just its lack of visible progress.
That's such a powerful point, because the unsettling part is that so much of the progress is invisible before it suddenly becomes undeniable.
Yes.
If I start a new workout plan, my lungs don't feel stronger for weeks. The growth is happening, but I can't see the metric on a spreadsheet yet.
That's the system building its root structure. You have to trust the trajectory of your effort, even when the daily feedback is nothing. That trust is the price you pay for compounding.
Okay, so if the seed is the input, the second part of the foundation has to be the amplifier.
Time.
Time, the
Yeah.
silent partner.
It's arguably the most underestimated force in our lives. It doesn't negotiate. It is a neutral multiplier for whatever you feed it.
So it magnifies your direction.
Perfectly put. It magnifies direction. A tiny error in your course, a small bad habit, a little bit of debt time, guarantees that error will become massive.
But the reverse is also true.
The reverse is where the magic is. A small positive effort, sustained over years, becomes completely unstoppable.
And the sources really ground this in intentionality, the idea that wisdom begins when you actually consciously number your days. You figure out how you're using your time.
And that leads to the key takeaway. We all do this. We overestimate what we can do in the short term, which leads to burnout and quitting.
Right.
And we dangerously underestimate what we can accomplish in the long term. Compounding just flips that logic on its head. It demands patience and, frankly, boring effort up front for these massive rewards later.
So if time is the multiplier, what's the fuel? This gets us to part two, the engine of success. And the argument here is a big one. Consistency trumps talent.
It's such a countercultural idea, isn't it? We
Mm.
fetishize natural ability,
Uh,
but talent only impresses. Consistency is what transforms.
Talent is potential. Consistency is power.
That's it.
I mean, you see this all the time. The person who is just a natural at something, an instrument, a sport,
Hmm.
but they don't have the follow through.
Right? Versus the person who's maybe not as gifted, but just shows up every single day. History is filled with ordinary people who quietly persist and just outperform the brilliant people who only work in bursts.
Because talent might open the door.
But consistency keeps you in the room, and it lets you build something once you're there. It's about faithfulness, not flashes of brilliance.
But doesn't that just lead to frustration? Persistence without talent? Isn't that just banging your head against a wall?
Only if the system is wrong.
Yeah.
But the core idea is that consistency is reliable because it's based on a decision, not an emotion.
Ah.
Motivation is a mood. It comes and goes. Discipline is an action you take even when you don't feel like it. The real winners act to create momentum. They don't wait for momentum to inspire them to act.
And that action itself compounds your identity. You stop saying, I hope to be disciplined, and you just are. The habits become your character.
Which leads to a truth our culture really rejects.
Which is,
Embracing the boring life.
right. The boring life that wins.
Compounding doesn't reward the restless. It doesn't reward the person addicted to novelty. It rewards the disciplined, which, let's be honest, often looks like sustained, unglamorous effort.
The boring stuff. Saving that 10% every month. Reading 10 pages of a serious book every day. Showing up for your workout 3 times a week for a decade.
Yeah, none of that is going to make a great social media post. But those are the routines that build the outcomes everyone else eventually envies. The wisdom here is just not to grow weary in doing good.
Because the harvest is guaranteed if you don't give up.
Exactly. The boredom is just focus. It's focus without distraction, trusting that repetition, not novelty, is the engine of greatness.
Okay, so we have the engine running. Consistency multiplied by time. Let's apply this. Let's go to part 3 and look at life's core areas, starting with the most practical one, financial compounding.
Right. Wealth, according to this framework, is built quietly. It's not built through these loud, dramatic wins.
It's restraint.
It's restraint and system design. Wealth isn't about finding the one hot stock. It's about the boring habit of paying yourself first every single time. There's that ancient saying, wealth gained hastily will dwindle, but whoever gathers little by little will increase it.
It's delaying gratification, saying no to the small thing today for freedom tomorrow.
And that's why you see these stories of modest earners who are just ruthless with their systems, and they end up more stable than high earners who have no control.
And we have to talk about the dark side of this. Negative compounding in finance is debt.
It is the monster under the bed. That interest works against you relentlessly while you sleep, turning a small indulgence into a long-term burden that just eats your future.
Okay, so that's the financial capital. What about the other capital? Mental and emotional compounding.
This is maybe the most important asset you have, your mind. Your thoughts compound. What you allow yourself to rehearse mentally becomes your default setting.
As a man thinks in his heart, so is he.
That's the idea. Resilience isn't something you just find in a crisis. It's built through the daily endurance of thought-practicing perspective, practicing gratitude, day in and day out.
So the small mental habits.
The tiny habits. 5 minutes of silence. Writing down 3 things you're grateful for. Intentionally replacing one negative thought. These things feel so weak on day one.
Almost pointless.
Almost pointless. But when you repeat them, you are literally rewiring your brain. You're shifting your emotional baseline from chaos to clarity.
And then there's relational compounding. Trust is built slowly, lost fast.
Excruciatingly slowly, and lost terrifyingly fast. Trust compounds through thousands of tiny, consistent behaviors.
The microdeposits.
The microdeposits. Showing up on time, remembering a small detail about someone, putting your phone away when they're talking, following through on a tiny promise.
And you don't even notice those deposits until you need to make a huge withdrawal.
Exactly. Like when you need to ask for forgiveness or you need support in a crisis, that's when you find out what's in the account.
And the erosion process is just as quiet.
It's so insidious. Relationships rarely collapse in one big fight. They erode. They die by 1,000 tiny neglects. The text you forgot to answer, the constant 5 minutes of being late, the dismissive comment.
Each one is a micro-betrayal.
Small enough to be explained away on its own, but collectively they destroy the foundation of safety.
This is so critical. Which brings us to part 4, the danger in the design. Let's start with that terrifying symmetry you mentioned, the danger of negative compounding.
It's so important to get this. Compounding is neutral. It is a force of nature. It just multiplies whatever you feed it, good or bad.
And the collapses don't start with a bang.
No, they start with a whisper. A small, seemingly harmless permission. A minor compromise. A warning sign you ignore. The analogy used is the little foxes that ruin the vineyards.
And neglect. Neglect compounds faster than effort.
Because it takes zero energy. And it's so easy to disguise it as rest or I'll do it tomorrow.
So neglect isn't a neutral act, it's an active input into the system.
It is an active input. And the most sobering revelation here is that the storms of life, a job loss, a health crisis, they only reveal what was already weak.
The house built on sand.
That's it. The collapse doesn't come from the storm. It comes from the foundation that was quietly neglected for years before the pressure ever showed up.
Okay, so if the danger is this passive decay, the solution has to be active structure, designing a life that compounds.
This is it. Good outcomes require systems, intentional design, not just wishful thinking or, bursts of motivation.
Diligence is thoughtful repetition.
Thoughtful repetition, not just raw intensity. It means designing your environment to support consistency. You remove friction from good habits, and you add friction to bad ones.
If you want to read, the book is on your pillow, not on a shelf.
Yes. If you want to save money, it's transferred automatically before you even have a chance to spend it.
It's an engineer's mindset. Focus on sustainability. When a system isn't working, don't just blame your willpower. Adjust the structure.
Because your future is not shaped by what you hope to do someday. It's shaped by what your daily structure makes inevitable. Every single day.
What a fantastic deep dive. So for you, the listener, the core lesson here is simple, but it is incredibly challenging. Compounding feels weak at the beginning.
Invisible in the middle.
And completely overwhelming at the end. The transformation isn't sudden. It's just consistent, unglamorous obedience to small things over a very long time.
And remember, the law is also merciful. It allows for correction. Because it's exponential, a tiny change in your direction today can lead to a massively different destination years from now.
It demands persistence, not perfection.
Right. You can start late, you just can't afford to quit early.
Time will pass whether you are intentional or not. That is the one certainty. Years from now, you will meet the accumulated results of your daily choices. It will be peace or pressure, freedom or regret. The outcome is inevitable, but its contents are still negotiable.
So what seeds are you planting today? What are you feeding the multiplier of time that you're willing to meet in your future?
Think about that structure, and we will see you on the next deep dive.